watch online. So welcome to week 10 of data visualization. We're going to continue talking about different ways we can use to do data visualization. Today is going to be the introduction to the last and final assignment that you have in this course. It's an easy one. We're going to be using a tool called Arcgis Online by a company named Esri. And it's pretty simple just to walk through the steps, and we'll talk about all of that today. We'll do a little review of what we covered last week and some websites that you can find some more of those spatial data resources to make those maps with those polygons. So I'll share my screen here with Teams and walk you through the Blackboard folder for this week and what's expected. And then you should see my screen there as well in person. Perfect. Okay, so coming to data visualization, we're going to go to weekly learning, module 3. And we are in week 10, so you can see it's titled Esri's Arcgis Online. So this is a bit of a step away from Tableau. If you want to think about them like 3 different applications, we've covered Power BI, we've covered Tableau, and now there's this Esri's Arcgis. And this is only going to be like a 1-week segment. It's very short and quick, but we don't spend a lot of time on it, and I'll explain why that is in just a little bit. But for this week, this is our third data visualization application. It's kind of similar to what we did last week, which we'll do a quick review of, where we did map visualizations in Tableau. So we got all of the construction on the highways, and we did all of the restaurant inspections in Brampton or Mississauga, and Caledon area. So it's kind of similar to that, doing spatial mapping, but it's just with a different application. Actually, this application is like the, I guess, superior application for specifically spatial mapping for things like urban planning, environmental planning, and all of that kind of technology. So ArcGIS, it's map-oriented analytics, and it's all online. So it's all through software as a service, so you can just access everything through Chrome, which is great. You don't have to install any software. And basically, it brings together some data viz as well as storytelling. So we've kind of talked about like storytelling and being able to, give a narrative to your data and have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and have those talking points. Yeah. So it actually has a portion of it that's made for storytelling in a really user-friendly experience. So we're going to cover all of that today. And if you come down in the Blackboard folder, here's your to-do list. So there's going to be a folder that you can access with 3 step-by-step videos that are actually produced and lectured by Jasmine Sohal. So she actually works for and has been a guest lecturer in this course. She works for Esri Canada, and she made these 3 videos specifically just for Georgian. They're really good. I think in total, first video is 30 minutes, the second video is 30, and then the last video is like 20. So in total, it's like an hour and 20 minutes, which I will definitely give you guys time today to go through, and then I can answer questions. We can go through it together. But she does an amazing job, and you can find her on my network of LinkedIn connections as well. And then once you go through those videos and you build that dashboard together with her, then you're going to produce an exercise that's a deliverable for our final assignment, which I'll talk about at the end of today. So assignment 4, which will be in the assignment folder with specific details for the assignment, and I'll open that up for you guys at the end of today as well. Okay? So I'm going to make sure.
If I understand you correctly, is watching the video and creating the dashboard with this lecture, with this Sohol, is it the assignment 4?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see right here, it's labeled as assignment 4 here.
Okay. So when we watch the video and create the dashboard, we have done assignment 4.
Yes, sort of, because you'll have to put your own twist on it. So very similar to how you created the Power BI dashboards, and then you had to duplicate it and then create your own. It's going to be very similar to that, where you follow the instructions and
Okay.
then you modify it so that it's your own story, it's your own data
Okay.
story that you're telling, right?
Okay. Okay.
So I'll kind of give a bit more talking points to the assignment and how to differentiate yours from hers. She's going to be walking you through the application and the features and the actual technologies of ArcGIS, and then each person's going to have their own data story. So I'll explain that more when I explain the actual assignment. But I want to make sure that everyone's got access first to ArcGIS Online portal through Georgian, and that the link to log in works, because I had my own issues, and I want to make sure that you guys are all added to the group. And if not, I'm going to make sure that I get that fixed by IT support so that you guys can all access it for the assignment. All right, and so that's pretty much what we're going to be covering this week. So if we click in this folder, this link, if you click the title, that'll take you to the video series. So it'll open up a new folder here in Google Drive. And the first link here is a PDF that she just goes through. So if you want to follow along the PowerPoint slides with her, then you can access that here. And then this first video, she talks about dashboards, which are a feature that we've covered in all of the visual softwares so far. And ArcGIS also has its own dashboarding tool. Then there's something called insights, which are almost like creating your own analytics or your own statistics that you can use inside of something called story maps. So that's the third video. Story maps is this tool where it's like a scrollable news article, but then if you almost imagine like a Wall Street Journal or like an online news article has pictures and stuff, it's fully interactive. So as you're scrolling down through something like, say, COVID-19, and then there's a map, you can like click and drag, and you can play with the visuals and get the statistics and the different analysis on it, and then you can read the paragraph of the story or the story map, and then you can keep going, and then there'll be other visuals that you can interact with. So it's like an interactive web page. Then I'll show you some examples in a couple seconds here, but those are the three videos that you'll access there through Blackboard. Now, to test if you guys have the login, if we come back to Blackboard, so I just got to the Google Drive by clicking this. Here's some instructions about the three-part video series and everything. Click this link here, and it should take you to a portal where you can log in through Georgian single sign-in, blue button, and access ArcGIS Online. So it should look like this. Does everyone see that? And then you should click this button. Now I don't know if I've been added or not. I might have been. Oh, perfect. It's working for me now. I was getting all sorts of weird errors, so maybe I can actually walk through some of the stuff with you today. I was worried about that. Perfect. Okay. So once you log in, do you see this screen, your profile or whatever? If you want to add an image there. And then we can just click home, and it will take us to our organization's home. And this is just a way of us knowing that we're in the right domain. So here we are in Georgian College. You should have all been added to this already, so you should have access. You're good? It's working for you. Anybody on Teams not able to access? Or just give me a thumbs up.
I want to try it now.
Yeah. Try it now. So I'll put the link in the Teams chat.
Okay,
it's also here on Blackboard. And I want to just make sure that every single person is able to access this. Yeah, perfect, Nishant. All right, how's everybody doing with that?
It works. It shows me the same thing that it showed you.
Okay, yeah, it looks like this page here with the blue and the purple background. Perfect. Awesome. How about you, Christopher?
Yeah, I'm trying it now. I'm just
Sure.
trying to.
Just the color is different.
Oh, the colors are different? I want to see
Yeah.
what yours look like.
Mine's green.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm also in. Mine is also green.
Yep, sweet. Okay, yeah. So I guess all students would be green, and then if they've added me as a different role, then maybe mine is purple for some reason. But awesome. Okay. Anybody else having issues? It's better to try it now to make sure it's working for you than later when you're trying to do the assignment or follow through the videos. Last call. Sweet. Okay, so this is the home screen. This shows us that we're on the right domain. So there's nothing really else on this screen. Esri is the company, so you'll see this ESRI. They're the company that makes this. They're Canadian. And Arcgis is the application. So like I was saying earlier, it's all online software as a service, which is kind of neat that you don't have to install anything. Now, like I said at the beginning, we're moving away from Tableau this week, and this is kind of like our third option. A lot of people, when we do the assignment in this, they ask like, well, why can't I just do that in Tableau? Like we've been doing Tableau all semester, and the reason is ArcGIS is kind of like this third option. It's not as popular, but you might come across it depending on what you choose to do in what sector of industry. So it's hyper specialized in its use case, which is any type of spatial analysis that's unmatched in the industry. So all of the features that we talk about today are basically technology investments in resource management, environmental protection, environmental planning, urban planning, municipal government, if they're looking into rezoning, anything in the environmental sector, or if you want to do something with forestry, you'll probably come across this tool called ArcGIS. So we're not necessarily the only people at Georgian that have access to this app. The environmental program also use ArcGIS because of its specialization with this use case. Now Tableau, the reason we focus on Tableau so much is because Tableau is the industry standard. It's growing like crazy, and it was just purchased by Salesforce. They just merged teams, so they're keeping their visuals all in the same environment, all in the same ecosystem with Salesforce and their visualization products. So the probability of finding a job where you're going to come across Tableau is much higher, much greater than what you might see with ArcGIS, which is why we're only spending like this week on it, and why it's just like a smaller assignment, which is why we focus most of the course on Tableau. And then Power BI, we did a couple weeks on. It's like the second cousin. That's not as popular, but if you can't do it with Tableau, or maybe you don't have the budget to do it, then a lot of people just opt to do Power BI because it's kind of like the next best option. Like Nishank, you're saying, Lowe's uses Power BI, and it's probably because it's free, and it does what they need it to, and they don't actually need the features that Tableau offers, right? So yeah, that's a little bit about ArcGIS. So we're going to walk through some of these buttons along the top, just so you can get a little bit more comfortable with the application. So gallery here, we'll go to gallery, is kind of, you can think of it like Tableau Public, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, which is like an online repository of all of these projects that we can go through and we can look at. So we can see some of these, major events for the Ojibwe of Southern Ontario, pulled from the book of, you can kind of get like a little bit of a description here. So if I wanted to see like Eat Local, Grey Bruce County, here we can open this, and then we can see who made it, so their user profile, when it was created, a description about it, and then we can actually view, and you'll notice this keyword story here. We can view the story. So this is an example of a story map, right? So like I was saying earlier, it's a scrollable, interactive news article. That's the easiest way to think about it. And so we can see here's the authors. As we scroll down, I can listen to them talking about it. Cool, I can do a little bit of reading. Okay, there's a vibrant community of you know, 500 products online, 50 local farmers. We come down, and here's an actual data map that we can interact with. I can zoom in. I can click these actual data points, and I can see who the producer is, who that farmer is, and we can move this map, and then we can keep reading. We can play this audio. They've got images, and then again, some more spatial maps, spatial data. And as I scroll, check this out. I go from 1 to 2 to 3. It's taking me to the top, you know, 5 farmers or top 4 farmers in that county, which is really cool. And then we can see all the gluten-free. Anyway, so that's a story map, right? You get the idea. It's like you can read through, but also it's interactive. So you can imagine the possibilities. So that's what the gallery is. You know, if you want to get some inspiration of what's possible, you can see and search. This is just, you'll notice, for Georgian College. So this is what we have access to see here. And I'll talk a little bit more about, you know, our organization and our access with what's been set up through ArcGIS. The next one is the map layer. And here we can see, okay, like if we were to ever add a layer of data, this map would show us the data layers that we're going to add. So if I wanted to add a layer, I could click that button. Now we can say there's no items because I haven't actually uploaded anything. This is brand new. So I don't have any content or anything. So when I go to the add layer button, nothing's going to happen. But we will look into adding some data in a little bit. But you can see here all of these options for the map on the side. So we can change our base map from topographic to like a dark canvas. Right, we could change it to a light gray canvas. We can choose all of our map options here. If we want any charts or legends, or to edit the map properties, you can do all of that sort of stuff here. We can also save this as a project. So that's the map view. It kind of takes you to the application. So I'll go back home and leave because I don't want to save that. But map would be where you would start working on a project. Scene is kind of the newer application that they've developed, and it's very similar to map, but it's like a 3D rendering application for, you know, if you're thinking about something like urban planning, here we can see what visualizing those new developments actually would look like, right? So if you were to actually do some urban planning and you wanted to see what the buildings would look like, Scene is like the 3D version of the map. So here we can see, like, look at that. It's almost like Google Earth a little bit. And you could actually graph your data, you know, like this. We'll go back home. Okay, so that's the Scene tab there. Then we have Groups. Now, Groups is going to show you, you know, we have no groups yet, but if you were to do some collaboration, you could create a new group here, and then you could add people to your group. Or you can go over here and you can see My Organizations Groups. And this is where it's kind of interesting talking about, you know, Georgian College as a domain has been given access to ArcGIS, and we're not the only users here. So we have the big data program, but there's also the environmental program that has access. And so we can see all of these things have been made by students at Georgian College. So here's one called faculty training, or here we can see that they're doing Barns of Simcoe County. So here's one that a student has made. I don't know if I can actually view it because you can set the permissions on what can be viewed. You can say viewed only by me, viewed by people in my organization. So can I open it? I don't think so. Let's see if there's one that I can open. No. Faculty training? No. Okay, maybe not. Maybe there's none that we can actually access, but these are all made by people at Georgian, which is kind of cool. And so when we create our projects, we can add them to this group. right? So that's the group section. You don't really have to use it too much. Then there's content, which is where we can obviously add our data sets, our layers. So you'll hear this term layers a lot, and layers are kind of, if you want to think about it, like what you can put on top of and layer over a map, like what we did in Tableau last week. And then there's this last tab here, which is organization. And this is, oh, you can see here my my subscription is going to expire in 13 days, so maybe I have to fix that. But here we can see all of the members of the Georgian College organization, and I can see that, okay, you guys have all been able to access it, which is great. So all students have been added in this class, which is awesome. So everyone should be able to log in. If you haven't, then I'll have to add you to this organization here. And Joachim Schmidt is the administrator here at Georgian who is in charge of adding people if you ever have problems with accessing Georgian as well. Not Georgian, access with ArcGIS. Cool. So that's kind of like the basics of the different tabs along the top here. And we can take a little bit of time to see if we can actually add some data to a project here. Just wanted to double check that I was recording. Now, one thing before we get too far into it, I forgot to mention this. I wanted to say this as a review of last week's class. We made those things in Tableau, right? Which was like the construction project, or we also made the restaurants. There's these two websites that I wanted to share with you. Canadian GIS, go on in. There's Canadian GIS here, which has a bunch of open data and geospatial resources, as well as Canadian GIS/data Ontario. So if you just wanted to see Ontario data, you can see it's all broken down by province, and we can look at all of the different data catalogs that are available to us. So if we want to see like Great Lakes data, or there was even one really cool one that I found, which was, I'm super into fishing. So there's this fish stocking data for the past 10 years. So if I wanted to, and this is an idea of what I have that I'm going to try to work on, is graph all of the lakes in Ontario, right, and get all of the polygons for the lakes, and then based on which fish have been stocked the most, I'll be able to actually visualize which lakes would be the best for fishing, right? And like how many years ago they've been stocked, and then what type of fish, and then I could filter it out in a little application on Tableau, and I could say like, okay, I want to go fishing for lake trout or something, and then it would just show me only lake trout lakes. And I could see, okay, I want to make sure that they've been stocked at least 3 years ago, so they're nice and big and they've grown up and they're not still like the little baby ones. And then, you know, so that's my idea. And I found that through this website, Canadian GIS, right? So you can just scroll through. I think there's even a...
Please, can you post those links? Yeah, so we can just bookmark them on our system.
You want the link to it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'm going to put an announcement out, and then I'll send out these links. So this is the Canadian GIS, and I think you can actually just search through. It's all geospatial data, so you can just search for like something that you're interested into. Oops, I think I clicked something there on the blog. You can just search the site. So I searched fishing or something, and then, you know, that came up. But you can see they've got LiDAR data and, you know, historical data for Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, open data portal. So I'll put that link in the Teams chat right now, but I'll also send an announcement with it. And you can kind of look through and see what would be something interesting for you to build, or see what's possible for you to build in Tableau. All right, so that was kind of there, and I'll put this one too for the Ontario data. All right. And the key is that it's open data, right? So that you have access to it and that you can connect it through an API, so that you'll continue to get the most up-to-date data is the best way possible, because then that way you don't have to really change anything. You just have that connection string to the API, and then anytime they update their data set, you get the latest data. All right. So coming over to, there's also this link from the Blackboard. So what is GIS? ArcGIS. This is the Esri website, and I'm pretty sure, I want to look this up. Esri offers a bursary or a scholarship each year through Georgian College, I think. And I think it's only available in the summer. So if you wanted to, that would maybe be something to look into. I wish I had a link for the actual bursary. Esri Canada scholarship. So it's not money that you would have to pay back. Okay, so maybe it is before June 1st. I can never remember which semester they do it, but they do this every single year. So that would be something to look into. They've got a bursary, so that was just something I knew about. Anyways, coming to this link, this is a link on the Blackboard in the weekly learning. So we'll just go through this and kind of read a little bit about what is GIS. So we already kind of know what spatial data and spatial systems are for analyzing all those different types of data. And it's kind of cool the way that they've used their own tool here to show us, you know, with a story map, what it is or what the tool is. So we can identify problems. If I click this, we can see this actually corresponds with, you know, it's interactive. We can set priorities, we can monitor change, we can perform forecasting, and we can understand trends. How does it work? We have maps, which are the containers or the data layers, and they're easily shared and embedded in different apps accessible virtually anywhere. And then we have data that we can integrate. You can either upload like a CSV file or a worksheet or a KML, or you can integrate an API link to a data set like from an open data source. And then it's going to use spatial location to put it on a geographic component. All right, so that's why we have something like a base map, and then we can link it to a spreadsheet and a table. Then it lets us do spatial analysis. So there's things like clustering and, you know, heat maps and all of that sort of thing where we can look at the outliers of the data on a spatial layer, and we can do things like estimating and predicting to understand our data from new perspectives. All right. And then these are all the sectors that use GIS. And I thought they had another cool website I wanted to look at. Maybe not. Oh, here we go. Let's find an interesting one. So these are all just showcases of what they can do with it. Go look at this one. See the patterns of extreme human population. If the world's too dense or not dense enough. With 8 billion people, we can go through and we can kind of visualize what that would look like. So here is the largest uninterrupted expanse of sand in the world. And as you can see, so this is kind of like the data story that we're talking about, right? It's an interactive map on the right-hand side. Now it's going to take us to the densest in Manila, Philippines, 108,000 people per square mile. It's the world's densest city. So they're obviously using the satellite image here. All right, now it's going to take us to Antarctica, I believe. Yeah. Pretty cool. Zero permanent population. And now it's going to take us to India, Delhi, which has almost 17 million people, which is more than the combined total of the 4 largest cities in the US. It's cool. And then you take a look at something like this up in Siberia, which is 5 million square miles, and nobody lives there. But I probably know why, because it's so cold. So anyways, I think it just keeps doing this comparison between like crazy cities. Oh, here's Mexico, and then Australia, the outback. There's nobody. But as you can see, it's just kind of cool. On the right-hand side, this map is just going, depending on where I scroll, I can kind of change it. Baffin Island, Canada. We made it. There it is. Nice. All right, so let's go to, I believe it's map. And in Blackboard, you should be able to find this link. It's also in the video lesson instruction. It's a URL to an open COVID-19 case data set here. So take this link, I'll put it in Teams. Yeah, it is pretty fascinating, Biode. All right, so take that link, and we're going to try to add this to our ArcGIS. So we're going to add, and then up here you can see this little plus button. I'll just wait for people to get that link copied. So this is a brand new map.
How do we get
We can
to this
add.
page? How do you go to this page where you are now?
How do I get here? Oh, okay. So from ArcGIS, I'm on the Home tab, right?
Yes.
Just click the word map along the top of your screen.
Okay.
So we just go to map here. You should see something like this.
Yes.
Cool. And now we don't really have a lot of options. There's this button though at the top left where we can add layers or add data to our map. All right, so you can see if I had a CSV file or KML, we talked about KML last week, or even sketch files or routes, we could add these to our map. So we have, and I believe I have it in one of these tabs. Yes. So a website I want to show you as well, before I go to this one. So another thing that Esri has is something called the Open Hub or Open Data Hub. And so here, I'll post this link in Teams. I'll have to post all of these links in an announcement after the class. You can go through Esri Canada's Open Data Hub, and this is basically just, you know, a searchable database of all these different data sets that we can use to make our visuals. So we can search here for data and different maps. We can even visualize, okay, if I zoom way out, here's all of the Canadian data sets or data hubs that we can look at, and I can click into some of these. I can see, so here's a data set for Sudbury. There's a bunch obviously around Toronto. I think Barrie has one. And you'll hear her talk about this in the video. She says one of her favorite ones is this one for the Toronto Police Services. So if we open this, if I click open, it'll take me to a new tab. And here I'm now on this link. So it's just providing me a link to an open data set from a company. So here, Toronto Police, data.torontopolice.on.ca, we have this data portal. And if we click this open data, we can see all of these data sets for different things like major crime indicators, homicides, traffic, budget. So if we go to major crime indicators, we can see, again, very similar to like that data set that we downloaded for the Barrie ward districts. We can look at major crime indicators. It's going to open up in this new tab, and then if we view full details, I don't want to view the map. We can see all of the attributes and the data types for the data. So we can see, you know, obviously each one has an index number, when it was reported, the occurrence date, the division, what the offense was, occurrence month, year, day, neighborhood ID, et cetera, et cetera. And then they give other data sets we might be interested in, like the robbery data set. So here we can see all of the major crimes that have happened, and there's 280,000 records. We can view the data table, and here we can see all of the different events or crimes that have happened in Toronto, which is very neat. And then you could map this, and you could see which neighborhoods have the most crime. You could see like which crimes happened during which months. So that's all just through the Open Data Hub from Esri. All right, and you can search through, and you can find, you know, Toronto Police Services, Oakville's got one, Mississauga. It's not just necessarily police. Right, here's Esri's COVID-19 resources. So I think that's one of the ones that we use in the video. And you can search for open data. It doesn't have to be through this website as well. Professor? Yeah.
Yeah, I put something on the chat. I don't know if it's possible for me to be able to get data on bear attacks.
Oh, sorry. Is it possible to find data on bear attacks in Alberta or BC? Let's see. I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked for that. Let's take a look. So here we've got Alberta. You're interested in bear attacks?
Yes, it's actually for my project.
These are just like the city data.
Okay.
But we could probably find, like, if you went like if you looked at your keyword that you want to look for is open data, right? So it means it's just open for anyone to use. So that's just an article, but bear attack statistics, look for a CSV file, open government portal. So we could find maybe data here, and there's 33,000 records. And I thought I saw something about bears. Let's see. Bear Bay.
Okay.
So there's grizzly bear population units, hunting activities. You want to find bear attacks? I don't know if they would have that, but it might not actually be under the word bear attack. You might have to look for it and scroll through. There's 88 records that match the word bear. So you might have to go through here and see, you know, cadastral information of Bear Lake. So that's just a lake. Grizzly bear occupancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Interesting.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
But yeah, these websites are the places to look for sure for open data. This one too even seems pretty interesting. Search.open.canada would have a lot of open data as well, which is very cool. So I'll put that one there in the Teams chat as well, just so I don't forget about it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so once we have that link, okay, so here is the one from Blackboard. And I put it in the Teams chat already, and we can scroll through and we can see it's just an API to grab the latest data. So I got that from here. Okay, so that's coming from ArcGIS services. We're going to go back into, which tab is it? Our Arcgis Online app, and we're going to add an API. All right, we just can enter the URL there. Is that maybe not the right one? I thought it was that one, but one of these. Which one is it? XML. thought it was this API one. Let's see. OGC. Web service. Maybe it's web service. Okay, yeah, it's got to be web service. So we're going to click add and then web service, the third option down. I thought it was API through API web services, but it's actually just web service. And we can add custom parameters if we want, but we'll just leave it blank. And we should just be able to add this to the map. And you'll see what happens when I add that data layer to the map. We get this timeline along the bottom, which is cool because then you can hit play and you can visualize the data over time. But if we drag this like a filter almost, because I want to see all of the data at once, you can see once I go to 2020, obviously all the COVID data comes because that's when COVID started. We're just going to drag it all the way back from the beginning of time to now. So we get all of the data points here. All right, and then we can close this. We've got our data. So if I go to my layers now, I can see I've got this Canadian cases sample, and I can hide that layer or show that layer here. And I've got a bunch of different options. I can show the table of data. You know, coming to my layers tab, I can see all of the options available. I can save the layer, I can duplicate it, rename it, etc., etc. All right, we also have all of these options on the right to affect our map now. These were all grayed out before. Now that we have a layer selected, right? We can change all of the properties. So you can see it even opened up on the right-hand side here. I can change the transparency, the visibility range. I can enable time or not. The refresh interval, because it's coming from a web service. I can say I want this layer to automatically refresh every 5 minutes, every 1 day, whatever. But I think this is an older data set, so it's not actually being refreshed anymore. But you can set it up to a web service that'll, you know, update on a regular basis, which is kind of cool. So that's up in the properties up here. We can also change the styles. Okay, so here we just have a location single symbol. But if we wanted to, if I zoom way out to see all of Canada here, I can go heat map, and now we can see, you know, where the densest elements were for this data set. And we can see obviously like Toronto, if I zoom way out, would have had the most cases, and then Vancouver, BC, right, Montreal as well. So we can pick our style. So I don't mind this single symbol one for now. We can change our filter if we want to add a filter. We can add different effects like shadows and grayscale. Clustering over here is very similar to some of the analytics that we have done through Power BI, which just were like automated clustering. So if I enable this, I can kind of change the clustering settings, and we can see like how many cases happened in a specific area, right? And as I zoom in, it kind of changes. But we can see the groups of these, especially in the GTA, there's a large number of COVID cases. And we could change the radius to be a lot higher, right? And then it will absorb a lot of those bigger districts around it. All right, so now it's 120, as opposed to if I go really low, it's going to be finer grain detail. We can also change the size range so that we only have large clusters, or we also have small clusters. And you can affect all of those. Give them labels if we want the label to be on or off. So if you want to actually see that number as we zoom in, or we can turn that off as well. We can change the color of it and everything. Pop-ups are kind of like when you click it, it's going to say this cluster represents 208 features. We can customize what this little tooltip is going to say in the text area here. Here it just says, you know, represents and then cluster count dynamically. We can get these dynamic sources from this button here to add to our titles. So that way it's going to say 208 if I click this one. If I click this one, it's going to say 4. right? And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's just with clustering. All right. So that's the clustering tab. We can go over here to pop-ups, and we can enable. I'm actually going to turn off clustering for now, just to show you this. With pop-ups, basically this is like a tooltip for each one of these little data points. If I click it, I get this pop-up, right? And if I click this one over here, I get this pop-up. So average age was 60. This was in Grey Bruce City or County. The person's self-isolating, blah, 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 blah. It's just showing 14 out of the 15 fields. And we can select these fields here, and we can edit what this pop-up is going to look like. Or we can add a description. And if we click this little button here, we can actually select the fields, and we can, so like city is these braces in city. We could say something like, this person is from city. And we can see an example is from Grey Bruce, and they are, and then we can go, I believe it'd be age, and they are in their 60s. They got COVID on, we can go date. So we can very specifically give a data story here, right? Instead of having to interpret an entire title, or sorry, a table in there. They got COVID on date, and they are currently, and I think we can just go details. It says they're currently self-isolating. And now we can get rid of all of these. Oops. So now there's not like a messy table. Now each time I click one of these, you can see this person is from Sudbury. They're in their 50s. They got COVID on, and they're currently self-isolating. Pretty cool, right? And it's going to dynamically give me a story for each person. This person is from York Region. They're in their 50s. They got COVID March 1st. They're currently a male in his 50s. And then this one obviously details he's a brother of one of Toronto's recently reported cases. Da, 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 da.
This thing is automatically created.
This is created based on my dynamic.
Okay.
So that, his details section was a lot larger.
Oh, okay, that's
right? So here we click this one, it just says self-isolating.
Yeah.
But that one, the details section, okay, that one's self-isolating. This details section is this whole thing.
Okay.
They are currently, and then it's gonna say, so that doesn't really make sense grammatically.
Oh yeah.
They are currently, and then normally it just said self-isolating. This one's like an entire paragraph. So it's saying, oh, okay, they went to Ajax Clinic with these symptoms, da 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 da. And we can add as many of these as we want. We can even give a title. So we could give a title for, like, I don't know, age and date or whatever we wanted. But that's the pop-up section, which is kind of cool that we can customize each data point. Right? And so this one doesn't really work because this person is from, and it just says to be determined. And they are in there, and obviously age was blank. They got COVID on March 15th, and they currently, and this says no details. So obviously, however the data is filled out, it's going to affect how you can use it. But for the most part, we can get an accurate story from these people, right? Cool, so that's the pop-up section. We've got the fields section here. So these are obviously our data points, our data types. We've got int and age, city, date, details, general source, isolation place, the province, their gender, and their source and status. So that's kind of a view of the data. We can look at labels. So if I wanted to add a label here, not sure if I can figure this one out. Oops. If we wanted to give a label to age, now we can see, these people are in their 50s, these people are in their 20s. As I zoom in, I can have a label that's actually enabled, or I can turn it off. It's just like data labels in Tableau when we turn data labels on or not. All right, we can change that from age to whatever we wanted. Age for average, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll turn that off for now. We can configure some charts. So if we want to add charts, we can actually overlay charts as well. If we wanted to edit the time, right? all the way up to 2020. Obviously, there was nothing happening in the 80s or the 90s. And then we can add our own custom sketches as well. So if I wanted to, I can add my own specific, vector points, or yeah, you could change the symbol, but we can add our own geometry shapes and make it a new layer called sketch. So obviously I have my Canadian cases layer, and if I hide it, I can also create my own layer here, and add points to it, or I can draw a line like this, and I can make all of these different data points or polygons if I want to, right? And then we can have different layers for different use cases. I'll just delete that. What was the last one? Sketch, and then map tools. So, if we want to turn on some of these features, like location, we can see our X and Y coordinates up there. If we want to measure the distance between something, right? So those are just, kind of basic map tools, but it will add a new layer, and you could leave that on your map if you wanted to for analytic purposes. All right, so that's kind of the basics there of adding layers, but there's a lot more that you can do with this, as you can probably see when we go through examples of stories, which I think I have, yeah, story maps here. So if you go to this link, this is going to be where you create your story, and you kind of can combine your maps and your paragraphs and all of your insights, and you'll see this in the video. Let's see if we look at collections. Yeah. Let's see if we can find any in the gallery. And I've already kind of showed you examples of stories, right? Like coastal flooding, and we can see how coastal flooding is impacted by sea level rising. And so we go through this, we've got this nice introduction paragraph, then we can see this insight that they created, this data point, and then we've got a nice image. What is coastal flooding? We go through, we can see how this island, Kiribati, in the Caribbean would be displaced due to sea levels rising, or even New Orleans, right? And it's going to take us through a bunch of places that would be impacted. What is the data telling us? And look at that, super cool. And we can even use this little slider to see what would happen in, where is this? Virginia, Norfolk. So that by 2040, if the sea level rose by 1.3 feet, okay, this is what it would look like. So all the green areas would be newly flooded areas in only 18 years, just based on this little river coming through that's connected to the ocean, right? Just 1.3 feet. Right, there you go again. And then we can see this, by highlighting potential future vulnerability, it allows city planners to focus more intently on triage areas that might be at risk. So red represents buildings and roadways that are at the highest risk because they're next to the water, or areas that are of low elevation. Orange are by tidal flooding, and yellow by moderate flooding. So this is where it really helps to have these urban planning. Here we can see by 2060 how these urban areas would be affected by sea levels rising in Virginia. And by 2080, you can see it starts to get pretty depressing. Obviously by 2080, if the sea levels continue to rise, it looks like the entire city is just going to get covered. And here we can see a zoomed out view of Virginia with sea levels rising. Cool, and then they've got a conclusion. So that's how a data story, yours aren't going to be this long, but that's what a data story looks like. So we'll take a break here, and then we will come back and I'll explain the assignment. And then you guys can have some time to go through those videos. All right. Any questions before we take a 10-minute break? About ArcGIS Online.
So in our assignment, we will have to create something like that.
Yeah, you're not going to create something like as long as this. Like this is like a ton of pages of scrolling with some pretty cool maps and stuff. But you will create like a 4-page version of your own story.
How many maps?
I'll talk about all of that when we come back from the break with the assignment.
When is the due date?
It'll be the week before the end of the semester.
Oh, okay. I think that's the final.
I've already given you the final. This is just going to be just like a smaller assignment.
This will be like the only assignment which we will be.
This will be the only other one you have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be it is going to be interesting to build this project. Anything with maps is cool. I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, anything spatially that you can visualize, since I'm like a visual person, I just enjoy it so much more because it's just so much more satisfying to use and see the finished product of it. So yeah, I'll talk about all the details of the assignment after, but any other specific questions about the application like ArcGIS after the basic introduction? Cool. So yeah, we'll just take a quick break and come back in about 10 minutes.